Hello and welcome back to Silver Age, Silver Screen, the podcast where we watch, discuss, and review sci-fi, cult, superhero, and other stereotypically geeky films. I'm your co-host, Casey Jarms.
And I'm your other co-host, Riley Thorpe.
And Riley back in, what was it? Was it January? No, it wasn't January. Let me look. Back in February, we watched a Superman movie directed by Zack Synder.
Yep, Man of Steel.
And we didn't like it.
Not very much. It was mediocre at best.
Yeah, we criticized that one for the lame villain, the terrible pacing, and above all, their portrayal of Superman, which we thought had no charisma and was out of character and a bit of a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure all of those problems are going to be fixed in this one.
Of course.
Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Ultimate Edition. Last week we said extended. It's actually Ultimate Edition.
Yeah, whatever.
We're watching the good one that has half an hour of extra footage and is comprehensible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say good, but goddamn, man. I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed this film. Because, in the past, I'd never seen Ultimate Edition. I'd only seen theatrical cut, which is, oh god, it's bad. It's awful, and we're not reviewing that, but I am going to talk about how much I hate theatrical cut a few times in this review.
As you should. After the mixed reception that was Man of Steel, DC decided to continue this story to create their cinematic universe. And they gave Zack Synder, the guy responsible for all the mixed reception, they gave him complete creative control over that entire cinematic universe until they basically said, no, fuck you, we're gonna fire you. Okay, fine, we'll do this out of pity for you, but then we're gonna fire you after. I don't know, this current state of Warner Brothers and DC is a little turbulent these days.
Justice League is its own mess, and we'll get to it in a few months, but god, this film, it is very much a sequel to Man of Steel, now with Batman part of it. Yeah, it added in Ben Affleck as Batman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. And two of those castings work. I'm gonna let you guess which didn't.
It's really interesting for me because I remember pretty soon after Man of Steel, because Man of Steel was 2013.
This was 2016, I believe?
So I believe in 2014, DC announced Batman v Superman, and they also announced the casting of Ben Affleck as Batman. And that, I feel like people forget just how much hate was surrounding the casting of Ben Affleck.
I mean, it's very similar to, in past Batman films, Michael Keaton and Heath Ledger, because you cast a comedy actor as the Batman.
Right.
Even though at that point in time, Ben Affleck had already transitioned to a drama actor in The Town and Argo and it proved he was really good. And Ben Affleck's a good actor in this. I don't like how his character is written. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But Ben Affleck, despite all the fans being like, this is going to be awful, he works in this movie. Kind of.
And since then, people were celebrating his return in the Snyder Cut, and they celebrate the rumors, I believe it's confirmed, or otherwise it could just be rumors, that he's going to be in the Flashpoint movie.
Wait, they're still making that?
Yes, Anthony Muschietti, who made the two It movies, is directing.
Oh, good. Yeah, get that horror director to do a Flash movie. Well, actually, if it's Flashpoint, that's a darker story.
Yeah, Michael Keaton is also returning.
Ooh, that would be good. Like as Thomas Wayne?
I'm not up to date on the rumors. I believe it's just like a future version of Batman. Basically, he's playing an older version of the 1989 Batman.
Okay. By the way, if you want to see a good Flashpoint movie, watch the animated one. It took a very messy story from the comics and made it into one of the best superhero movies DC has ever made. But we're off topic. Yeah, they cast Ben Affleck. He faced a lot of backlash, but ended up being liked. They also cast Jesse Eisenberg. He got perhaps even more hate from fans. And you know what? I wasn't actually part of that. I was excited for Jesse Eisenberg because he was famous for playing Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network.
Right.
And that's a good jumping off point to make a Lex Luthor. He wasn't as well received.
No, there's a good reason for that. He is terribly directed in this movie. Like, the way his character's written and directed, he's not playing Lex Luthor, the calm, collected, intellectually brilliant Lex Luthor, like the guy who, despite the fact that he is a mortal man, is willing to go toe-to-toe with Superman and has enough confidence within himself to not even break a sweat. In this movie, he's not playing Lex Luthor. He's basically playing the Riddler.
I'm pretty sure he said in interviews that he took a lot of inspiration from Heath Ledger's Joker, which is the anti-Lex Luthor.
Right.
In terms of persona. Like, Lex Luthor and Joker are paired up a lot in the comics because they're contrasting characters. So, ooh boy. Yeah, I don't like Lex Luthor in this, and we'll get into it when we get to what Lex does in this.
Also, I will say, fun fact, Gal Gadot was actually originally going to be cast as Fiora in Man of Steel.
Right, the one who was a better villain than Zod and got killed by Elliot Stabler.
Yes, that one. Gal Gadot was going to play that character, but dropped out due to, I think she was filming one of the Fast and Furious movies.
Right, yeah, she plays Giselle in those.
Then for Batman v Superman, she took the much, much better deal in playing Wonder Woman. And we all know how that ended up for her. With a good movie and a okay movie, at best.
Wait, hold on. Is it Godot or Godot?
It's spelt Gadot. However, she is Israeli, so, people pronounce it both ways.
I'm pretty sure Godot is right, because Godot is what my first instinct was, because the play.
It's like Henry Cavill. I call him Henry Cavill, but there's people that call him Henry Cavill.
Enough talking about the development and cast of this movie. Let's get into it. So how's this movie about Batman going to start? Well, it's a movie about Batman, which means we gotta do the obligatory scene that I swear to God, if they do it again in the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, I'm gonna be pissed. We get Batman's parents getting murdered again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, worth noting, two small things about this film. I'm not going to harp on them. One, Batman's parents are played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohen, who were also in The Walking Dead, and they hate each other in that show, which is interesting. Also, instead of Batman walking out of Zorro, you can see in the background that it's Excalibur, which I feel like would be a very different Batman, because he's kind of inspired by Zorro. I went to Shining Knight in Armor Batman in this movie.
The point is a montage of Batman's parents dying, a lot of slow motion, as you can imagine with a Zack Snyder movie. Young Bruce Wayne runs away from the funeral, falls down a well, gets lifted up metaphorically by the bats.
Because it's a dream sequence flashback. And you know what? I will say, this scene, as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, now I understand why people like Zack Snyder and I don't. Because it's a very well shot scene.
Yes.
Bruce's wide mouth scream notwithstanding, it's probably the best shot Batman's parents being murdered scene I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The gun hooks around Martha's pearl necklace, and as it fires, the knockback shatters the necklace and you see the pearls dropping down. It's a really well shot scene, but it doesn't add anything. Like, we don't need another scene of Batman's parents being murdered. And honestly, I feel like if they showed anything at all about Jason Todd to open up this movie, that would have been a better opening. But that gets my whole point about Zack Snyder. It looks good, but if you think about it for a second, you realize, wait, what is this even adding to the story?
Right, exactly. It's like there's a difference between a movie being a well-told, well-written, well-directed story and having cool visual moments. You know, Zack Snyder is fantastic at making his movies look great. But for him, it's that over telling a story.
Yeah. Do you know what fondant is?
I might have heard of it.
It's a cake decoration that looks really pretty, but tastes awful, and a lot of people hate it, but a lot of chefs use it anyway because it looks pretty.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder is fondant. But yeah, we get obligatory Batman's parents being murdered scene, and then we get a flashback to Man of Steel from Bruce's perspective of just the city being destroyed, the destruction porn that we mocked. Now actually, 3 years later, we're still gonna criticize. You can't have your film do something bad and then make it good in the other one. But whatever. We see from Batman's perspective the destruction of Metropolis, and it's horrifying. It really captures how powerless he feels. as just these gods are destroying everything.
And it does, in a way, start to get the idea across your head like, okay, they have this much power. This is how Batman would feel in this situation, being just a mortal man. So it gets this idea across like, okay, I can see where Batman might be coming from with this. Because Batman's always like the eternal pessimist. In case the Justice League goes rogue, he has a contingency plan for every single member. So, seeing this new thing coming to Earth, yeah, he's gonna get paranoid.
Yeah, and obligatory, wow, this film is kind of commentary on 9/11. There are a few other things in this movie that makes that interpretation very valid. But also, it's a very well shot scene, but there are just two little moments in it that I want to mock real quick, because that's what we do on this show. As Batman is driving his car through Metropolis, because he has to be at the Wayne building to help people, because he's a hero, although I feel like there are better places he could be, like, whatever. He, calls his employees and he's like, hey, you should evacuate the building, which they hadn't done before. They needed him to tell them. They're morons. They die because they're idiots. Wally loses his legs because they needed the boss to say it was okay to evacuate the collapsing building.
I watched this movie last night and I was like, that is so stupid. Literally, there's a giant ship destroying the city in clear view of where they're standing. And then he calls them like, oh, hey, how's it going? Oh my God, there's a giant ship. And then they all die.
Also, there's a bit where he saves a little girl, which is good. I like Batman saving people, especially children, considering his whole deal. But she's just standing under something that's about to collapse, and he just has to run and tackle her. That is a dumb child.
Yeah. Granted, it's a horrifying scene, so...
Yeah, fair enough. And, oh God, and this movie, it is not subtle at all. There's a point after everything's destroyed where there's just a school bus worth of children, walking past Batman.
That I thought was a little weird. He's walking through the debris of a giant skyscraper that just fell, and then there's just a group of school kids holding hands, walking in a straight line.
But, it's effective. It has a few dumb moments, but that opening, excluding the repeated Batman's parents being murdered scene, the opening of Batman seeing the consequences of Superman being a terrible hero in the last movie, that's good. It sets up the conflict between these characters very well. How that conflict pays off, I don't like.
Yeah.
This movie, it's 3 hours long. It has very clear 3-act structure. Each subsequent hour gets worse and worse. But I do think the start of this film isn't bad.
Yeah. There are moments in this movie where I'm like, okay, that was actually done pretty well. Whether that be a scene, maybe even sometimes just a line that was said. I'm like, okay.
This movie's highs are very high. It's some spectacular cinema at its best. And its lows, oh God, its lows
are very, very often.
So after this, we cut 18 months ahead. Lois is interviewing an African warlord. And with her is photographer Jimmy Olsen, who's actually a CIA agent. Okay, I'm fine with that.
Of course, that happens.
I'm fine with that. And as they're interviewing the warlord, his men discover that Jimmy Olsen actually brought a tracker there so the US military can call in a drone strike. And Superman shows up to save Lois, and he flies through a drone, and it's cool. By the way, Jimmy Olsen gets shot and killed. As Superman is saving Lois, the warlord's minions, his American, well, actually, KGBs would be Russian. He emigrated to whatever. The mercenaries working for him turn on him and gun down all of his men as Superman is saving Lois.
And once they pile up all the bodies, they torch it with a flamethrower to make it seem like this would be Superman's laser eyes that did all this.
So Superman is being framed for murdering a bunch of people. And the US military cares, even though they just tried to murder them right before Superman showed up. Whatever. Jimmy Olsen's an assassin, whatever. But here's the thing. The theatrical cut of this movie, which I saw in theaters and I hated, it's fucking gibberish, that movie. The main reason why I was so surprised that I enjoyed this is because this movie has a plot that makes sense. So many vital details were cut from the theatrical release. And I'm not going to blame Warner Brothers for that. Hey, Zack Snyder, films being 2 hours isn't a new thing. If your film has to be 3 hours and an extended cut to work, rework your film, okay? But whatever. What they cut was all of that. Like, in the theatrical cut, Lois gets kidnapped. Superman saves her. And now he's wanted for murder. Like, they cut Lex's goons framing Superman by murdering people.
Right.
The movie is incomprehensible, the theatrical cut, which is why everyone hated it.
Right. Like, if your movie needs 4 hours, what is it? Yeah, 4.5. How long is the Snyder Cut? I'm pretty sure it's just 4 hours. If your movie needs 4.5 hours to be told, maybe find a different story to tell. Or maybe cut it up.
I don't like extended editions. If I'm going to see something in theaters, I want to see a movie that is good. I don't want to have to wait a year and get a Blu-ray for the movie to work. The Lord of the Rings, which are probably the most famous extended cuts, those work the theatrical cuts. The theatrical cuts are good, but the extended are better. With this and Justice League, the theatrical cuts are awful, and it takes the 4.5-hour director's cut to be workable. No! If you're going to release a movie in theaters, have it be a movie that is good.
Right, exactly.
I don't like the idea of going back and doing an extended cut to make your movie passable. We're not doing the theatrical cut. I just want to rant about that, okay?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Also, when we have this big Senate investigation into Superman, no one, checked the bodies, which were gunned down, which would have been a tip-off that Superman was framed because Superman doesn't use guns. There's some dumb stuff in the plot of this movie. After that, the US government, especially June Finch, who is surprisingly a good person despite being a senator from Kentucky. The US government starts investigating Superman, and they start trying to come up with contingencies. So they meet with billionaire genius Lex Luthor, who acts like a fucking clown during every single scene in this movie. I'm sorry, I tried to like Lex, but he's so zany and cartoonish and just says random bullshit always. They want him to come across as smart, but he just comes across as annoying.
Right.
Oh god, why couldn't they have just had Jesse Eisenberg act like he did in The Social Network?
Or, I don't know, maybe cast Bryan Cranston as Lex Luthor. That would be perfect, I think.
I remember when this film came out, a lot of people said, should have been Heisenberg, not Eisenberg, which, I don't know, Jesse Eisenberg had potential though, and it just fails. But yeah, Jesse Eisenberg, well, forcing a US senator to eat a Jolly Rancher, because he's a weirdo, he explains that he found some kryptonite, which they redo kryptonite's origin in this movie, and I actually think it's a good change as opposed to, a rock from thousands of light years away happened to drift to Earth, and apparently by a rock, I mean 20 tons of it, considering how much kryptonite there is in the comics. They make kryptonite be a broken part of Zod's terraforming stuff, which makes sense because Zod's terraforming stuff made Superman weak in the last one. That's a good change. By the way, Lex Luthor, while digging through the rubble, he found a little kryptonite and he tested it on Zod's corpse and it could injure Zod. So the US government hires him to make contingencies to take out Superman. And they give him access to Zod's corpse now, which he already had access to because he tested Zod's corpse to prove that he could be an asset to the US government, so they would give him access to Zod's corpse. Also, he tries to get them to let him import a giant chunk of kryptonite from the Indian Ocean.
Yes, that too. I love how everyone is like, oh yeah, there's so much more context. But then it's there's many instances in this movie, it's just wait, that doesn't make any sense. You know, this scene. He already had access, he just wants access again.
It's weird.
Even with the 30 minutes of extra footage, it's still pretty convoluted.
To be fair, the 30 minutes of extra footage, we do get some good characterization from Clark Kent and characterization for Batman. Clark begins investigating the Batman, the mysterious Gotham vigilante who's been beating up criminals and putting brands on them that make them get murdered in prison. Why? Like, I don't get why prisoners would kill other prisoners for having also been put in jail by Batman.
I don't know. I just think that Zack Snyder very clearly loves like darker, edgier, fucked up stuff like that. You know, like a vigilante who brands them. He likes that shit. But at the end of the day, that's fine if you want to do that. But if you're bringing down a popular IP in order to do that, then maybe adapting this IP is not the thing for you to do.
And you know, maybe we harp on Zack Snyder too much. There are a lot of people involved in films like this. Like, for instance, this movie has a lot of dumb writing, which we can blame on Chris Terrio. Like, Zack Snyder was the director, but there are other people involved in the film. But also, he made a movie called Zack Snyder's Justice League, so I don't really mind putting all the blame of his films on him.
Right, well, the point of the Ultimate Edition is to be Zack Snyder's full vision of this movie. Same with the Snyder Cut. So at the end of the day, it's like, these are the director's cuts. He is the director. This is all on him. And again, I don't want to rag too much on the guy because it's hard making a movie. It's hard making a good movie. But at the end of the day, it's like, who else are we going to blame?
While we were getting these added scenes of Superman investigating Batman and growing to dislike Batman because Batman's a remorseless murderer. I mean, first off, the branding, if you know that the brands make those people get murdered, that's killing Batman. Okay, you're killing those people.
Right.
But setting that aside, I thought, this is expanding. It's giving us actual character motivations in this edition. I'm actually liking this more.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, about 45 minutes into this movie, me and Riley had a text conversation. I'm going to read it off. Riley, we have a problem. I'm enjoying a Zack Snyder movie. Which you respond, oh boy, which one? Context, dude.
I'm just clarifying.
And then I reply, the one we're reviewing. You like the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman? I'm 45 minutes in and it's not great, but it's a lot better than Man of Steel or the theatrical cut. Oh, well, you have 2 more hours. Give it time. Crying smile emoji. Okay, then, let's see, half an hour later. Never mind, this movie is fucking stupid. We'll get to the scene that made me completely change my view on this. But, plot. Lex has some conversations with Senator Finch. During one of them, he gives a line that was very much added, so it could be in a trailer. Devils don't come from below. They come from the sky. Ooh, that's gonna be in all the trailers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but she ends up blocking his right to import kryptonite. So, he does it illegally. And Batman starts fighting against his attempts to import kryptonite. So we talk about how Batman tries to stop Lex from importing kryptonite.
Yes. Batman shows up to a gala event hosted by and in honor of Lex Luthor.
Oh, right. The gala. In case you couldn't tell from my you're right, I'm doing things out of order, which is we shouldn't do. But my tone was Batman guns a man down with a machine gun in 3 scenes from now. But yes, there is a gala. Batman and Superman both get invited to a party Lex is hosting because he figures out both of their identities. And actually, there's a scene at the party where he introduces them to each other. And it's like, Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent in the same room. Who would have thunk? Which, I'll admit, that's actually kind of good, him figuring out their identities and just fucking with them.
And Wonder Woman is in there, too. Because Batman, while pretending to go find the bathroom, he plugs in, like, an encoder, a downloading piece of tech onto the hard drive in the building. And it downloads his entire hard drive because Batman is looking for this person called the White Portuguese. He believes he's, like, in control of all this giant crime ring in Gotham and Metropolis and all that, and he suspects that Lex Luthor has something to do with it. So, he downloads his hard drive, gets caught, goes back up, and then once it's done downloading, he goes back down, and the device is missing. And he sees a woman, played by Gal Gadot, who we know as Wonder Woman, walking away from the room with it. And she escapes.
Later he tracks that woman. Her name is Diana Prince. Wait, hold on. Do they ever say Diana's name in this movie?
They say Miss Prince, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. They don't. She doesn't really ever introduce herself. I don't even think they say Wonder Woman.
No, not one, no.
But whatever. He tracks her down and they talk and she's like, Lex has a photo of me that I want gone. Okay, cool. And she, gives the drive back to him. But anyway... Oh, actually, there was... Oh, boy. I just remembered a dumb part of this movie that's also kind of a good part, but also kind of a dumb part. So at the parties, Superman's like trailing Batman because he overheard Batman talking to Alfred. Side note! I'm a side note inside my side note. I'm bad at structuring things. Got all those parentheses like it's a programming thing. Jeremy Irons is a really, really good Alfred. I would argue maybe even better than Michael Caine.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
He's great in this as Alfred. He has both the civility and the snark. He's a great Alfred. But anyway, as Superman is trailing Batman in Lex's basement, he sees a news broadcast of disasters going on, and he flies off, and we get this montage of Superman saving the day. And it's a really good montage. I've said in the past, I like when Superman saves people. But while this is going on, there's news clips of people talking about Superman. And in the past, we've mocked both Man of Steel and Superman the movie for the Christ allegories. I take it all back. Those movies were subtle compared to this one. This movie, it's so heavy with its Christ allegories that as Superman's saving people, we get a narration of someone saying, so Superman is a Christ allegory.
Yeah, like straight out.
And Lex, throughout the film, calls Superman God. It's not a subtle film.
When it comes down to it, I'm not opposed to the idea of Zack Snyder using Christ imagery and Jesus allegories in his movies. But if you look at almost all of his movies, I don't know, I haven't seen all of them, but from the ones I have seen, if you look at all the ones that I've seen, it's like there's Christ allegories all throughout them. And it's like there comes a point where you have to stop and wonder, okay, are you doing this to be deep and have a meaning? Or are you just pretending to have a meaning? Because that's what smart movies do, you know?
A lot of what was in Man of Steel was just how it's shot, like him T-posing as he flies away from Zod's ship. And sort of similar later in this movie where there are crosses around him as he dies. But god damn, if you're going to do a symbolism, you can't just have a character go out and say, Superman is a Christ symbol. Subtlety! Fucking subtlety, man! Also, in that conversation, other people, say their thoughts on Superman. One dude compares Superman to Hitler because people also look up to Superman. That dude's a fucking moron.
Yeah.
And one dude, it was the only dude in that conversation I liked. Also,
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil, that's his name, right, that dude. Pretty sure, isn't he, he's a sexual assault or something? Whatever, that dude, he was also in it, and he, talked about Superman being an alien and making humanity feel small. But anyway, in that conversation, one of the guests on the show says, I don't know, I think Superman's probably just an ordinary guy trying to do the right thing. And yes, that's Superman! That character is the only one in this movie who understands Superman!
I will give this movie credit for what it tried to do. I don't think it necessarily succeeded at doing this, but it kind of pulled, in a way, sort of a Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen type dynamic. It's like we've lived in the real world for forever, and now there's this guy who's basically a god comes to Earth and starts doing whatever he's doing, and it starts mentioning the idea that there's a lot of political and social turmoil because of that, a lot of divide on how to respond to this. And I guess in a realistic world that would make sense. Imagine if the greatest superpower in the world was not a country. It was a singular guy that can destroy a city in an afternoon without even trying.
Yeah. Although the difference is, Watchmen, a lot of focus is on the inhumanity, how John has lost his touch with the rest of the world and could do it because he's become so alien. This movie tries to do that, but it struggles to acknowledge the fact that Superman is not Dr. Manhattan.
No.
He's a person. He's maybe not genetically, but in a spiritual sense of the world, human. He's just a good guy trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Like I said, it brings it up, but I don't think it necessarily succeeds at doing it. Also, it doesn't really go many places.
Also, while we're talking about news broadcasts, I forget when it happens, but there's a scene where Jon Stewart from The Daily Show talks about Superman that I thought was Yeah, that's amusing. Superman says he doesn't want us to consider him American. I don't know how we could have been confused. Well, with him dressing like an American flag and having 1/3 of the country's name on his chest.
And I will say it's funny, the idea that we did technically get Jon Stewart in this movie, just not Jon Stewart Green Lantern. Jon Stewart, the Daily Show host.
You don't know. He's going to become Green Lantern in the 3rd edition of the Snyder Cut because he already released like an edited version of the Snyder Cut that's in black and white now.
Yes, I saw that was a thing. I didn't check it out yet.
Later. We will review it later.
Mm-hmm.
But where were we? What happens next? Oh yeah, Batman kills everyone.
Yep.
Batman tries to steal the kryptonite from Lex Luthor's minions, and he's never called KG Beast, but I forget his real name. He's KG Beast in the comics, Anatoly Knyazev. Knyazev, however that's pronounced. KG Beast is transporting the kryptonite to Lex Luthor's place, and Batman decides to steal it so he can kill Superman. And Batman
uses a lot of guns.
Yeah, he just fucking murders everyone. How do I even phrase it? It's not Batman kills people. It's Batman shoots a car with a machine gun until it explodes, then drives through the rubble. It's Batman ramps up and like hits a dude with his car, and you see the Batmobile hit the dude's head. He's so fucking brutal. Throughout this movie, Batman kills like 30 people, and some are argued, well, it's not really killing, it's manslaughter. No! He shot a dude with a machine gun till he exploded! That is murder!
I often feel like a lot of the fans of this movie who will defend it and support it no matter what, they go so far to be like, oh yeah, no, I don't mind that Batman doesn't kill. I love this movie. I think Zack Snyder did a great job, but I don't mind Batman killing. Well, Batman not killing is his entire character. It's not just a rule he has, it symbolizes everything that he is as a human being. He does what he does because he genuinely cares about human life. He knows what it's like to be a victim of death, and he makes a career of being Batman in order to make sure that other people do not feel that same pain that he's felt. And then Zack Snyder comes in and just says, all right, fuck it. Let's make him this murderous psychopath, which to an extent makes sense in the context here, because at the end of the day, you have to establish the possibility, the tension of like, okay, Batman has made a goal of killing Superman. That's completely out of Batman's character, and it's a terrible portrayal, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, it makes sense why they did this, but there's so many other better ways to go about it. Like, I don't know, maybe if you are going to take inspiration from The Dark Knight Returns, which they did for this movie because Batman fights Superman, you have to do it more of like from a thematic perspective than just the, oh yeah, it's Batman and Superman fighting. That's cool, right? Yeah, which is mostly what Zack Snyder does. If you're going to have an older, more deranged Batman like was in The Dark Knight Returns, don't do it just because it's cool. Do it to tell the story. And that would have made sense. It's like he's this older, earlier in the movie, you see him downing pills to fall asleep. Yeah, this guy's in a bad spot in life. So at the end of the day, maybe have the conflict of this movie be Batman struggling with the idea of his own sanity. Saying, oh, I might have to kill this person. Is this whatever I stand for? Yeah, I don't know.
Here's my problem with it. We've talked a lot in the past about how we don't like films where Batman kills because we think it makes Batman too unsympathetic, but sure, if Batman's going to kill, you can do something with that. Do it dramatic. I don't think that the idea of this, that this is an older Batman, it's after Jason Todd's death, which they never actually really acknowledge in the film. You can see it in the background shot, and they've said it in interviews. But they should have... Well, first off, they should have done more with the fact that Jason Todd is dead. Like, have that be why Batman's cynical and jaded, as opposed to it just being a background prop. Whatever. But yeah, Batman, his son was murdered because he wasn't strong enough. He watched as people died and a city were destroyed by this monster. He's been doing this for 20 years. He's older. He's cynical. He's jaded. He's started killing people. But the film fails in a few ways at that. A, it never really establishes that this is something different for Batman,
Right.
that he's only just now killing, which gives the impression that this is a guy who's always been killing, and he's just a fucking asshole murderer in this. Like, they added in a scene for the Ultimate Edition where Clark Kent talks to the significant other of one of Batman's villains, and she's like, he wasn't a great guy, he made some mistakes, but he was a good man deep down. He was a father. My kids are gonna grow up without a father now because Batman killed him. So it's a film where Batman is fucking evil. He's an asshole, okay?
Right.
And Superman doesn't like Batman because Batman's an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see where this is going, because Batman is a violent, unrepentant murderer in this one. Superman tries to stop them, and that's why they fight. No, that isn't why they fight.
Not at all.
And if the film is about Batman going through a redemption arc, him becoming good again, it should probably have him stop killing, right? When he becomes good at the end, the film gives no indication that he's gonna stop murdering people.
Right.
In fact, after he has his big, oh, Superman is a person, and he, goes to stop KGBs, he kills, 20 dudes!
Right. And don't tell me he doesn't kill them.
If you're going to have Batman start killing people because he's gone to the dark side, and then have Batman become good again at the end of the film, he has to stop killing people!
Right.
Oh, God.
I mean, I will say one thing, however, and take this how you will. I will correct you on one thing.
What?
That you said there. You said, at one point, Batman walks past the framed suit of Robin with spray paint on it, the joke's on you, Batman, implying that it is Jason Todd. But here's the thing. It's not Jason Todd.
Well,
Zack
Zack Snyder says it's Dick Grayson. Other producers say Jason Todd,
Yeah.
Which, if you don't even have that nailed down and it's being contradicted by people who worked on this movie, kind of implies it's not really a thematic thing and just there for a prop.
Right, exactly. That could have been so important to this movie, but it's like a one-shot thing, remember that?
Yeah, Death in the Family and Under the Red Hood. They were adapted into the best Batman movie, Batman Under the Red Hood. That's the best Batman movie.
Yeah.
I love that film.
Yeah.
And it's a prop in this. So, we get Lois investigating on how Superman is framed. We get some scenes with an employee of Bruce Wayne's who lost his legs and he hates Superman. We're gonna brush past those because, they're important to the film, but they aren't really good things to narrate in a podcast. Lois meets with General Martian Manhunter a few times, and there's nothing to indicate that he's Martian Manhunter because that was retconned in Zack Snyder's Justice League based off a fan theory from this film. Whatever. But the point is, there's a big Senate hearing on whether... Oh, wait, we forgot something. Because we were so mad about Batman killing. After Batman kills all those people, Superman shows up and is like, stop killing people! And then he just flies away. He doesn't, take Batman in or anything, or do anything to stop it, and he's just like, no! Okay, bye, gotta go to a Senate hearing.
And then there's the iconic line that everybody quotes to this day. Do you bleed? You will.
Yeah, that's a cool line, but he doesn't say that to Superman. He says, do you bleed? Superman walks away, and when he's gone, he's like, you will. I got the last word in. I'm Batman, I'm cool.
Superman might have heard it. He has super hearing.
Fair enough.
Also, what happened earlier, Batman confronts Wonder Woman about stealing his tech. They talk about it. She gives it back to him. As it's being loading and being decrypted, he falls asleep. Although,
oh my God,
him.
I blocked it out. It's the worst. Oh God, the nightmare. I don't have long enough hair to pull my hair out in anger, but I'm trying.
Yeah, so it cuts from him watching the tech get decrypted, immediately cuts to some other world. Basically, it's Earth, but after Darkseid has turned it into Apocalypse and destroyed the planet, parademons everywhere. Batman is wearing a, albeit pretty cool suit. He meets up with these people who tell him that they have a shard of kryptonite that they can use to kill Superman with. And they betray him. Batman kills them all with guns. And a bunch of parademons come flying down. They capture Batman and the rest of his men. They tie him up. An evil version of Superman flies down, kills all of them, but then Batman wakes up and you're like, oh, okay, it was just a dream. Then out of nowhere, a giant portal opens up and the Flash runs through saying, Bruce, Lois Lane is the key. And then Batman wakes up again. And it's like a dream within a dream.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah. And that's the other thing that gets on my nerves about this movie. Like, it's obviously setting up Justice League. But at the end of the day, they handled it so poorly. Like, it's so on the nose. There's literally a point in this movie where Batman sends Wonder Woman these video files. Each thumbnail is of the logo of a different Justice League member. She clicks on them, watches just video of them in clear view of each camera, like Flash stops a robbery at a convenience store. Aquaman just swims right up to a camera drone, stays there for a good 15 seconds, and then destroys the drone and swims away. Cyborg is created with a mother box. And then at the end of the movie, Jesse Eisenberg literally sees Steppenwolf with the mother boxes, or in a hologram of it. And then Batman says, we need to find the rest of them because I have a feeling that we'll need them.
Well, he doesn't just have a feeling. He had a psychic vision of the future after the dark ending that didn't actually happen of Justice League. Yeah. Like, what? Does Batman have psychic powers? Why is this never acknowledged again? And it isn't just a dream because he learns about Flash. He learns about parademons. He learns about kryptonite and Darkseid in this dream. That's a psychic vision because Batman can see the future and it's never acknowledged again. And also, why did it have to be in the film? Because that's not Batman's motive. He's not trying to kill Superman because a future version of Flash told him Superman's going to become evil. He's trying to kill Superman because Superman failed to stop Zod and he fears Superman.
Right.
Like, this film, it gives the characters like 5 different motivations for wanting to kill each other each. So, in case you were wondering what made me text Riley, this is fucking stupid, that's it! The dumb nightmare scene. Oh god, it's so dumb.
It's so out of place. And again, it looks cool. Just like the Superman drowning in a sea of skulls in Man of Steel. Like, it looks cool, but it makes no sense. It's completely against the characterizations in the comics and in this movie, even. Like, it just doesn't work. And it doesn't fit. But Batman has a cool action scene wearing a cool suit, and that makes it a masterpiece.
Yeah. So, Superman shows up to the Senate hearing on what happened in Africa. And Senator Finch is talking to him when she notices, hey, that's weird. There's a jar of piss. There's a jar of piss on my desk. Because earlier in the film, because she's folksy and she says southern anachronisms and shit, she told Lex, don't give me piss and call it Granny Sweet Tea. So Lex leaves. God, it's so fucking stupid. Lex leaves a jar of his piss on her desk, labeled Granny Sweet Pea. And as she looks at it and like freaks out, a bomb in the chair of Wally, the guy who lost his legs at the start of the movie, who Lex gave a wheelchair to, blows up. The whole U.S. Senate is destroyed while this woman looks at a jar of piss.
Yeah. And Superman just kind of stands there like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah, I'm really sad now. Oh. Also, something I noticed when rewatching this movie. So Lex Luthor in the comics, actually I'm pretty sure was created in Superman the animated series and then immigrated to the comics. But Lex Luthor is usually portrayed as having this woman with him. Mercy Graves, she's his bodyguard.
Yeah.
And she appears in this movie. She like stops Batman at the party. And you'll notice she's in the Senate building when it blows up. Because Lex had to send her in to put that jar of piss. So what I'm saying is, Mercy dies because Lex Luthor wanted to make a piss joke. I'm sorry. You deserved better. I mean, not really, but...
After that, we see Superman saving a woman, which is an addition from the theatrical cut. In the theatrical cut, he just kind of walks up.
Flies off again.
Yes. He has freeze breath. He could have put the fire out. But he didn't.
He could have done something, like, even if it was too late, he could have tried as opposed to just standing there looking sad.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's 100% justified in this cut, though him being shown to save someone in that does make it slightly better than
Slightly.
the theatrical. Slightly. And then after that, Lex Luthor shows up to LexCorp to find that someone, presumably Batman, robbed him of the Rock of Kryptonite.
Superman goes and visits his mother, Martha, and actually, before he flies off and is gone for half the movie, Lois says to him that he's living his life the way his father wanted. And Superman's like, Superman isn't real. He's just the dream of a man from Kansas. And not to nitpick, but Jonathan Kent didn't want him to be Superman. What the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Also, I forget when it happened. At one point in this movie, while we're talking about dumb quotes, because I have 3 just written down one after each other in the notes. At one point, Lex brings up the problem of evil. Like, do you know what that is?
Yes, but for
It's
those
like
who, yeah.
It's this classic philosophical argument about the Judeo-Christian all-powerful or all-good God. It's
Right.
basically, if God is both all-powerful and all-good, then why is there suffering in the world? If God is all-good, then he would want to end suffering, and by suffering, it tends to mean like children dying of cancer levels of suffering that still happen. And if God is all-powerful, then God will be able. So either God is not all-powerful or God is not all-good. It's like this classic philosophy thing. There have been a lot of responses to it over the years that I'm not going to go into, mostly because I don't know most of them. But Lex brings that up to say Superman's evil because the problem of evil. And like, ooh, it's deep. He's referencing philosophy, except for, no, what the fuck are you talking about, Lex? Superman isn't all-powerful. Like, if he's all good, he would have stopped that bomb. And if he's all powerful, he would have been able to stop that bomb. But he didn't, so he's evil.
Mm-hmm.
But Superman's not all powerful. He has weaknesses. He can't see through lead, which you exploited to do that bomb. Like, the problem of evil doesn't work if God is, in fact, not all powerful. Also, problem of evil just says that God is not 100% good or 100% all powerful. And you know it's in this continuity that he's not all powerful because you prove that, Lex. But even if he isn't all good, that doesn't mean he's evil and you need to kill him. Like, shut up, Lex, you moron.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. It's really interesting on the surface, but yeah, if you think about it at all, it just doesn't make any sense.
Fondant filmmaking.
So after the bombing, after Batman robs LexCorp and Superman's having his existential crisis, Lex Luthor starts operating on General Zod's ship and on his body. He starts talking to the computer, which tells him, like, we have knowledge of over 100,000 systems, 100,000 planets, and one line in that scene, I will give a credit that I personally liked, was Lex Luthor saying, "Good, teach me." Because that is what Lex Luthor would do in that situation.
Yeah.
He's just this megalomaniac, always looking to be the most powerful, and his perception of power is his intellect.
And they don't state it at the scene, but we learn later on that from that, he learns about Darkseid, and he kind of goes even more insane, although it doesn't really change his actions in any way. But yeah, he learns about Darkseid. Oh boy. Superman meets with both of his parents. Like, he flies to Kansas and his mother says, either be their everything or be their nothing. You don't owe these people a damn thing. Which, oh my god, that is the complete antithesis of the ideals of Superman. He also goes to a random Mexican mountain and talks with the ghost of Jonathan Kent. I mean, I assume that it's a hallucination or something, but like Jonathan tells a story that Clark doesn't know, so whatever, it's a weird thing. And Jonathan like says that he's proud of Clark, which is much better than anything he did in the last one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that scene was, again, so out of place, so weird, because there's literally no context to what the hell that's happening. Again, like many of the other scenes in the movie, it's like, yeah, there's more context to some of the overall situations, but the stuff in this movie happens, and it's like, oh, wait, what?
So the film's been going on a long time at this point. It's called Batman v Superman. I think it's about time to do some Batman v Superman. Bruce does a bunch of working out and he makes a kryptonite spear and kryptonite grenades. And he shines the bat signal in the sky, summoning Superman to fight him. And Superman doesn't come.
Yeah.
Lois, who's done all this mystery and realized that Lex is the big bad, which, I mean, they already knew from many, many reasons. She just keeps uncovering evidence that he's evil. She confronts Lex and he's like, well, I need Superman here. So he just shoves her off and Superman shows up to save her, which, I mean, that's in character.
Yes, before this all happened, Martha Kent and Lois Lane were kidnapped by Lex Luthor's goons. Lois Lane was brought to Lex Luthor. He pushed her off the roof. Superman saves her, puts her on the ground, and then goes to confront Lex Luthor. And Lex is full insane at this point. Basically tells him that the problem of evil, and tells him saying, look, we have your mother. She is going to die in 1 hour. The only way to save her is if you kill Batman. And then he tells him that he knows both of their secret identities, which is cool. I'll give him that.
Yeah, like, it's good. People have different names for God. Horus, Zeus, Jehovah, Clark, Joseph, Kent. That's a nice line delivery.
Basically, Batman's a thorn in his side, and Superman's like the ultimate evil. So he's gonna have them go fight each other, and he's basically trying to kill two birds with one stone here.
Yeah. Also, at this point, he's already started the weird put Zod's body in the make life chamber with his blood and it started glitching out. So, I mean, he already has a backup plan going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But then that begs the question of, like, if he knows, or maybe he didn't know at this point, but if he knows about Darkseid and Steppenwolf and the mother boxes and all that, what is he doing trying to kill the world's superheroes? People trying to defend the world, you know?
And not just that. Lex creates Doomsday, which, I mean, he does stuff like that in other continuities. But he doesn't even, like, have a way to control Doomsday. He just, I hate Superman, so I made another Superman who's even more evil. Mwahaha! Like, so this film, it's partially an adaptation of The Death of Superman. There are a few other films that adapt them. The one that springs to mind is the first animated one. And in that one, yeah, Lex creates a monster to kill Superman. Like, he creates an evil Superman, but he puts a chip in his brain so he can control him. Like, in this, Lex, he just creates Doomsday. Like, awesome, Doomsday killed Superman. Now what, Lex? You made another Superman, you fucking moron.
Yeah.
But with an hour left in the movie, the climax starts because the climax gotta go on forever, man.
Yeah, right. So Superman goes to confront Batman, trying to convince him to join sides with them, but Batman's not listening. They have this whole fight. They kick each other's asses. Batman has the upper hand, then Superman has the upper hand, and Superman has super speed, right? So he basically let a man shoot him with kryptonite gas twice.
Yeah.
That first time I get it, because he's like, oh, what the hell are you going to do here? Oh, shit, I didn't know it was going to be that. That makes sense. But the second time, they're in this warehouse or whatever, and they're in a bathroom, and Superman has super speed. But he runs at Batman at normal human speed, allowing Batman enough time to shoot him a second time. He doesn't even react. He just shoots it again.
I mean, the fight, it has some good moments, like Batman swinging Superman around, and that point where Batman's just pounding on Superman, then the kryptonite wears off and Superman just, like, stops Batman's fist. But overall, It's just okay. It's an okay fight.
Also, one thing that has always bugged me, it bugged me in the theatrical cut, and it bugged me in this cut. And I thought it was going to get fixed, but nope. Earlier in the movie, we see Alfred fixing, like, Batman's cowl. He fixes up the voice modulator, and he even points it out, he's showing the helmet that Batman uses in this fight. And he's like, oh yeah, you need armor, basically, because you're going up against some pretty heavy-duty things.
Which, that's a thing, it's from the comics, so it's not really on this film. That always kind of annoyed me, like, ooh, could Batman beat Superman in a fight? Yes, if Batman was Iron Man.
Yeah.
And also Superman is holding back, he flat out states it, like, no, Batman can't beat Superman in this continuity, or most continuities is my hot take. But what were you saying about the helmet?
I was saying that that was the last time we saw that suit being constructed. And then an hour and a half goes by, and out of nowhere, Batman's just wearing a full suit. Like, we don't see it getting constructed, we don't see him having a conversation with Alfred, like, hey, I might need to use something like this to go up against Superman. No, he just has a suit, and the most we see before that is the helmet being constructed, like, an hour and a half, almost 2 hours earlier.
Yeah, I don't think that's too bad of a problem. But you
No,
know
it's just
what
a
I do
nitpick for
think is a
me.
problem?
What is?
Why this fight happens. Like, we already talked about that Superman hates Batman because Batman's a remorseless murderer, but then, oh, actually, he's fighting because he got blackmailed into it.
Right.
So, that all's pointless. I mean, at least Batman's still doing his, I hate Superman because if there's a 1% chance he's going to turn evil, I need to treat it as 100% certainty and murder him because apparently Batman is Dick Cheney now. But whatever. The motives for the fight starting are kind of messy and dumb. But the way the actual fight starts, it's so stupid. So, what would you do if you were Superman in this situation? What I would do is I would fly down and I would say, I don't want to fight. Lex Luthor, he has a hostage. He told me to come here or she'd kill her. Please, I need your help. But instead, he says, but I don't want to fight you. I do. Batman punches him. All right, I'm going to fight you. Explain that you don't want to fight Batman before he's about to stab you with a spear.
Right. And it makes sense in The Dark Knight Returns why he's holding back a little bit, because he's legitimately like, dude, I don't want to fight you. We're friends. You're the one perpetuating this. But it's like their motives in that story are completely different than here. And just because it worked in the graphic novel and in the animated movie doesn't mean that it works here.
Speaking of The Dark Knight Returns, that's probably the most famous Batman fighting Superman story, for better or for worse. But the reason that story works, at least in regards to that fight, is because they're friends. They are characters who have been friends in the comics for decades, and they are in that continuity, and it's Superman being forced to fight his old friend, and there's this poignance to it. But in this, it's just they're two assholes who hate each other getting into a slap fight.
Oh, but no, the fighting looks cool, so that means none of that matters. It's just, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Before the fight, Batman just leaves his spear. He turned the kryptonite into a spear, and he just leaves it like half a mile away from where he's actually going to fight Superman, and he's slowly leading Superman there. Why couldn't he have just like made a kryptonite knife and had it sheathed on his back? I don't know. But he leads Superman there, and he pulls out the spear and is about to stab him, and we get the line that everyone makes fun of. I'm slapping my face as I say it because it's so dumb. Martha, save Martha. What? Why did you say that name? Martha is the name of his mother. Because Lois is there, by the way. And then we get the dumbest part of this movie. Like, save Martha? That's kind of dumb. But what happens immediately after? Everyone forgets. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. This movie has the subtlety of a brick, okay? And the biggest example is the Martha scene. Save Martha. Why did you say that name? It's his mother's name. Flashback to Thomas Wayne saying Martha as he dies. Flashback to Batman standing before Martha Wayne's grave that says Martha on it. Flashback to Martha Wayne being shot. Flashback again for the second time in 20 seconds to Thomas lying on the ground saying Martha.
Yeah.
I think Batman's mom might have been named Martha, Riley. It wasn't
so
clear.
too.
It was a very subtle thing.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that a movie like this, it would have been so cool if this movie was about Batman struggling with the idea of him having to kill this person. Like, okay, I might have to kill this person. I don't want to, but I have to because all the evidence is pointing to the fact that this guy is going to kill the entire planet. I think that what this movie should have done, like for that scene, take for example, he's punching Superman, but as he's like pulling his fist back, his arm like jump cuts to the gun that shot his mom, breaking the pearls and stuff. So he's envisioning, like, he's like, I am going to kill this person, but then at the last minute, he's like, wait, what am I doing? I know what this feels like, and I hate this. This is exactly what have always stood against. And I think something like that would have been so much more compelling than the moms having the same name.
Which, side note, do you want to know why they have the same name?
Why is
That's
that?
from the comics. It's because a dude, I forget the writer's name, I'm sorry. Someone who worked at DC for a number of years and wrote both Superman and Batman comics. His mother was named Martha, so he just made both of them have mothers named Martha. But I will give this film a teensy bit of credit. The Martha scene, it's cheesy, it's unsubtle, it's been mocked to death for good reason. It's not the worst idea in concept.
No.
Batman, who he's motivated because his mother was murdered in front of him when he was 8. Like Superman begging, please, you have to save my mother, makes him realize, oh shit, this is a person. I mean, I know throughout the film I've been talking about, you're not really human, you don't deserve to live, because Batman's an asshole in this continuity. But him, like, realizing at that moment, right, Superman's a person, he has loved ones, and that's what makes him stop. That's not a bad idea. The execution kind of fumbles it, but it's not an awful idea.
It just isn't very well executed.
So the fight's over. They're good. Lois throws the spear in a random pool of water because we will never need it again. And oh god, there's still another half an hour in this movie. But what could happen now? I mean, it's not like they showed both of the big twists of this movie in every single trailer.
Yeah, no, not at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
So Doomsday shows up, and also Wonder Woman shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and Batman goes to save Martha in a pretty badass fight scene that does end up in a lot of death.
Oh, so many deaths. He kills all those dudes, and oh no, he just knocked that. No, they're dead. KGB's definitely because he burned alive. But there's like a shot of like Batman kicking a dude and his like head slams into a brick wall and he collapses like, yeah, that dude's dead.
Right. You see the blood splatter on the wall.
Oh god, I almost forgot. He guns down people from the Batplane before that scene.
Yes, he does.
Oh, Batman's not killing them. It's manslaughter is a thing that Zack Snyder's talked about. No, they're dead. But yeah, Batman saves Martha.
For the record, manslaughter is something Batman would not do either.
Well, actually, to be fair, if we're talking about live action, comic book Batman, he doesn't kill. The only live action Batman, well, I guess we also have like Adam West, but the only live action Batman who isn't a murderer is George Clooney, which means
true.
He's the most accurate.
True, very true. Another thing that bugged me about saving Martha's scene is after Batman saved her, he goes, I'm a friend of your son's. And she basically is like, huh, yeah, I can tell. But it's like, it was a well shot and well choreographed fight scene. But as soon as he says Martha, the only thing that changes with Batman isn't the fact that he is going to stop killing people, he snaps out of it. It's the fact that, oh yeah, him and Superman are like really good friends now. Like later on in the movie, at the end of the movie, when, spoiler alert, we've already mentioned it, Superman dies. Batman says to Wonder Woman, he goes, I failed him in this life.
You did.
Yeah, you did, but it's like, what does that matter to you? You were trying to murder this man this entire time. What does that matter to you?
Also, while we're talking about the shot, this isn't about the movie specifically, but about where I watch it, or maybe it's like that way on the Blu-ray. I don't know. And Riley, I wonder if you had this problem. I watched this on the HBO Max account that I steal from Riley, that I'm pretty sure he steals from someone as well.
No, I don't steal it from somebody. I borrow it from somebody.
Whatever. The point is, I was watching it on HBO Max. Riley, did you notice that the aspect ratio of this film kept changing? Like,
yes.
When the fight starts, it switches from widescreen to 4.3. When there's the Martha scene, it goes back to widescreen. And then when we get Superman's funeral, it goes back to 4.3 for a bit. Yes. Why does that keep happening? I've never seen that in a movie before. What is that?
I guess because, I don't know, different aspect ratios will create different, like, subtle emotions.
Well, it's not that because this movie isn't subtle.
No, not at all. Like, widescreen is often very serious. Like, Christopher Nolan actually does aspect ratio, and I think the correct way. It's like every time there's a serious, dramatic scene, he uses widescreen. But when it comes to like action, he uses these big full screen IMAX style aspect ratios.
I believe from what I've read, because I tried to Google and there wasn't conclusive answers, but part of this movie was shot on normal film, part was shot on IMAX, so I guess the aspect ratio changes when it goes to IMAX.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I've never seen that before. Well, I guess, actually, to be technical, I've never seen it be unintentional. Or, I guess, intentional, but not serve a purpose before. Like, for instance, the show WandaVision, we talked about a few weeks ago. The first episode's like in 4.3, but then when it cuts to the real world, it goes to widescreen.
Yes.
Like, that served a narrative purpose. And this is just weird.
Well, and it's interesting because that 4:3 is the same ratio that I believe all of Zack Snyder's Justice League is shown
Yeah,
in.
yeah. You know, taking a movie that was filmed in color in widescreen and then cropping it and making it grayscale to make it more artsy is the most Zack Snyder shit I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm. Superman goes to confront Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor unleashes Doomsday. They fight for a little while. Doomsday looks like shit.
Oh god, he just looks so ugly. He doesn't have like the rock spines until later when he gets injured. He just looks like a thumb. Like, you know the trolls in the Hobbit movies?
Yeah, the
He
cave
looks
trolls.
like one of those.
He looks like Vincent Castle, the actor.
I don't know who that is, and I feel like you just insulted him.
I probably did. I am very sorry, Vincent.
In that scene where Superman's fighting Doomsday one-on-one before Batman and Wonder Woman show up, Superman like grabs Doomsday and like flies into the sky, and the US military shoots a nuke at him, and General Martian Manhunter is like, you can't kill Superman by nuking him, but they're like, we'll do it anyway. They're high enough that no one will be hit by the blast. No! What the fuck are you talking about? You don't detonate a nuke above a city! Well, actually, you do detonate nukes above cities. They're supposed to be launched in the air because the fallout comes down and it kills everyone. Like, oh, they're high up so everyone will be fine. No, you just killed all of Metropolis, you moron! But yeah, Superman gets nuked and he almost dies, but he gets sunlight, so he's back up again. And Doomsday's unstoppable. And Batman and Superman are fighting him when Wonder Woman shows up, and she has a really cool theme song, and it's actually kind of a good scene. But Doomsday, he's Kryptonian, he's unstoppable. Oh, we got that kryptonite spear. Where's the... Oh, god damn it, Lois! You threw it in a pond? Why? Why did you do that? Go get it! Now! Please!
Yep, and then she goes to get it, and because they don't know how to write her character, she gets stuck and needs to be saved by Superman again.
Almost drowns.
Almost drowns, and because Superman realizes that there's only one way to defeat Doomsday, and that's with the kryptonite spear, which is slowly killing him as well, he grabs the spear and flies at Doomsday, piercing him in the chest, and Doomsday also stabs Superman in the chest with one of his, like, bone spikes. After Wonder Woman cut off Doomsday's arm, it grew right back. Which, what the hell is that sword made out of? I thought only kryptonite could hurt them.
Well, they don't say in this. I mean, in the comics, Wonder Woman, it's a magic sword that can cut through anything.
Right, like what she said at the beginning of the fight when the three of them teamed up. He's like, he's not from this world. He's from my world. And she says, I've killed big things from other worlds before. Superman and Batman look at each other. Is she with you? I thought she was with you.
I'm going to compliment this film. I think Superman's death scene works. I kind of think it might have been better if it was the comics, where it's just, he dies from punches and punches, so many, just beaten down and again by Doomsday. But I do think how they do it in this one works too, where we get his flight theme from the last movie by Hans Zimmer, like, just really soft and pretty, and he, like, looks at Lois and says he's gotta do what he got to do. He calls her his world, and then he picks up the spear and he, like, flies and he plunges it into Doomsday, and Doomsday, like, punches him, but then Superman grabs onto Doomsday and, like, pulls himself further into Doomsday's spike so he can get the spear deeper in. Like, that's a good death. And as he dies, it's like a recreation of, like, that famous painting of Mary clutching Jesus's body, except it's Lois clutching Superman's. And also there are, like, crosses in the background for some reason. subtlety.
Here's what I will say about that ending. I do think the act of him dying, to an extent, I do agree with you. However, this movie was building up to this. Like, building up to the death of Superman so that when Justice League came around, they could bring him back to life to fight Darkseid and Steppenwolf. The problem is, Superman only has 43 lines in this entire movie.
Oh my god. Shit, you're right.
Yeah.
And it's even worse in, like, the theatrical cut, because they cut out most of his scenes.
Spider-Man had more lines in his cameo in Captain America Civil War than what Superman had in a movie where he is the title character. The point is, in this cut, I believe it is, he has 43 lines. You're trying to develop this character, setting up for his death so that, oh my god, when he dies, we feel the weight of that death. But he barely had any lines. And it's even worse in the theatrical cut. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this. It's like, I didn't feel anything for Superman's death in this movie. Not because I saw it coming. Not because it's Zack Snyder movie and I refused to find any enjoyment. I found enjoyment in this movie here and there. It's just Superman's death carried no weight because he is not really a huge part of this movie. And what part here is terribly mischaracterized. Same exact thing for Wonder Woman. Lex Luthor and Batman are terribly
Especially
characterized.
Batman.
Yeah, are terribly characterized. The relationships with each other make no sense because Batman hates Superman. And then he finds out, oh, your mom's name is the same as my name. Now we're best friends now. Later on, when they're having his funeral, one thing I did like was at the funeral, it was two different funerals cut together. It was Clark Kent's funeral and Superman's funeral. They're basically giving him a soldier's funeral because that's what Lois Lane says. She goes, they have no idea how to honor him apart from how they saw him, which was a weapon, a soldier. That was pretty cool. Seeing them intercut with each other, that was... I don't know, that was nice, but at the end of the day, it's like the entire world mourns Superman's death, you know? But it's like this entire movie, all we heard was people talking about how Superman is evil.
Yes, thank you. That's my problem with it. Like, doing the comics, the death of Superman, the whole world mourns because he's the savior who saved them again and again and again, except he hasn't in this continuity.
Right, exactly.
No one likes him because he's a dull dude who stands around looking sad as everyone dies.
Mm-hmm. Take, for example, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man, which I believe we're going to be reviewing soon?
2 weeks from now, I think.
2 weeks from now, okay. Take the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Most of that movie is New York seeing Spider-Man as a menace, but at the end of that movie, they team up, or at least help him save those people that the Green Goblin was going to kill. You feel the weight of that and the importance of that because this entire time, the city hated him. But now they're like, no, he's a good guy. And they go to help him, and they recognize him for the hero he is. Nothing like that even remotely happens in this movie. It's just a bunch of people talking about how he's an asshole, and him getting framed for everything, and then suddenly everyone's sad because he was the beacon of hope for this world.
Oh, by the way, talking about frame, we forgot to mention it because it was so dumb. When the dude who hates Superman because he blames Superman for losing his legs blows up the Capitol to, like, try and kill Superman, everyone's like, oh, was Superman a co-conspirator in this? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I did think it was kind of interesting, Lois Lane learning that the bomb was coated in lead, which Superman cannot use his powers through, or cannot see through at least. So, for that reason, I think, I don't know, that was kind of interesting. Lex Luthor is arrested. He's in General Zod's ship. He sees, like, a hologram of Steppenwolf with the mother boxes, so he knows that that's coming. He's arrested, goes to jail, gets his head shaved.
Batman shows up and threatens to brand him because, again, Batman's still a murderer.
He doesn't because Lex Luthor is basically telling him, like, hey, there's something really bad coming, and fuck you. Batman, instead of branding him, punches the wall next to him. Lex Luthor, with snot running down his nose, places his head in between the bars and starts singing. He has officially lost his mind.
Side note, there was a bit that outsmarted me in that little scene where Lex is like, I'm gonna plead insanity, woohoo, I'm the wacky boy! And Batman's like, well, there are lots of hospitals that treat patients with respect and help them get better. And I audibly said, no there aren't! Not in this universe. And then he says, you're not going to one of those, you're going to Arkham. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Oh, by the way, one last little bit of what? Just what? Dumb thing? So while Lois is in Smallville for Clark's funeral, Martha gives her a package, which Clark mailed to her because he wanted it to get to Lois. I don't really understand the logistics of that. And anyway, Lois opens the letter and, oh, it's a wedding ring. Oh, just a little bit more sadness. They was gonna get married.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this movie deep? That said, both of the funerals are really well shot and really...
Yeah.
They're good.
And as Lois Lane is standing over the casket of Superman, or of Clark Kent, she takes a handful of dirt and puts it onto the casket and walks away. And then just as pieces of dirt start floating off the casket, cuts to black, end of the movie.
Hey, side note, Superman gets revived by a mother box, right?
Yes.
So, Superman's dead here. It's not in the comics where he's actually in a coma. So, what's with the dirt rising saying that he's actually alive?
Exactly. Foreshadowing, because this movie is terrible at foreshadowing.
But it's foreshadowing that doesn't get paid off.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
like
terrible.
The nightmare scene.
Yeah, what do you expect?
After everything we've said, can I be honest?
Yeah.
I don't hate this movie.
Yeah,
it's
me neither.
Very flawed, but it's much better than Man of Steel.
I actually do completely agree.
It has better pacing. I don't like a lot of the characterization, but it's better than that movie. It's miles better than the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
It's not great, but there are parts of this movie that work. It's just that they're surrounded by parts that are so dumb.
There's so much in this movie that is there to like. I thought Ben Affleck was great as Batman. Wonder Woman, for what little in the movie she was, I thought she did a good job.
Wait, hold on. I just realized you can cut Wonder Woman out of this movie and it doesn't really affect the plot at all.
Yes.
Oh, that's not a good sign.
Nope. But, like, for everything that there is there to like, there's something there to not like. Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot are very good and very nice additions. That said, or at least in Batman's case, he is terribly characterized. There's interesting plot points, but then for every interesting one, there's another one that doesn't make any sense. And is just there to be edgy and cool. It bounces around. There's so much in this movie. Like, it's 3 hours long, and there were times where I was like, there is so much more information coming at me than I was expecting. One thing that, this is a small thing for me, but I thought the color grading of this movie was much better, much improved.
Yeah, it's not all blue and gray. It's still kind of blue, but it's not as blue.
It's more colorful, which I feel like works better for me than that muted color in Man of Steel. So that I liked more. I don't know, the movie looks really good. The action is really well done. The actors do the best job for what they're given and what they're directed to be, but there's a lot of it that just doesn't make sense. It's not very well written. Lex Luthor, in particular, is directed terribly, and he's written terribly. Honestly, this movie, I do think it is better than Man of Steel, but there's just so much in this movie that was a missed opportunity. There's some of it that was improved, but then there's a lot of it that I'm like, it's still the sequel made by the exact same team, so...
Well, I mean, you gave Man of Steel a 5. What would you give this?
I'd probably give it like a 6, honestly.
You know, I've been oscillating between two scores, either 7.5 or 8, and I'm not sure which one. I'm going to be generous and give it an 8, a very low 8. I'm surprised by how much I like this movie. I mean, I didn't really like it, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, and it's miles above the theatrical cut, which is like a 5 or a 4. I would say, because it's just incomprehensible.
Anyway, that's our review of Batman v Superman, in preparation for reviewing the Snyder Cut at the end of the year.
And honestly, this is kind of messing up our bit. Like us, I mean, not liking, but not hating as much as the last one.
Right.
Like, we've been building to, we're gonna go through the Zack Synder Superman movies, and they're all bad. Like, oh no, what's gonna happen to the show if we like the Snyder Cut?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm like 2 hours and 22 minutes into the Snyder
Oh,
Cut.
you should be almost done then, right?
Yeah, I have an hour and a half. Yeah. To be honest, not to give away my thoughts right away, I basically feel about the Snyder Cut the same way I feel about this movie. It's fine.
Do you think it's worth the $75 million to make it better?
I don't know. For the sake of seeing what the movie that we could have gotten, I don't know. I guess I'll wait to see and finish it to see where that 70 million went. One thing that's ridiculous to me, and I actually looked this up, 10% of the movie is in slow motion.
Jeez.
That is 24 minutes worth of this movie in slow motion. You could watch an entire episode of Modern Family in that time, and it's all in slow motion.
Why Modern Family specifically?
Because I watched Modern Family a lot growing up, and it's a great show.
Fair enough. You know, this movie, it could have been better, but I have high hopes for next week's movie. We're watching a film directed by the same guy who directed our current, top film we've ever reviewed, and I would argue this one might even be better. We're watching Blade Runner, the classic neo-noir cyberpunk movie starring Harrison Ford that has, that really good speech at the end.
Yeah, and a lot in between, I imagine.
Well, yeah, there are other things in the movie. That was a dumb way to describe it. But yeah, we're going to be doing that next week, assuming we don't just stand in an explosion looking sad. Riley, if people like this show, where can they find more of it?
You can all find the show on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Silver Age Silver Screen. On YouTube, we post whole episodes and other small content here and there. You can follow us on all the other social medias to keep up to date on new episodes, old episodes, clips, fun stuff.
Well, if they don't care about the show, but they're just really into that one dude who gives the really low scores, though.
That's a very good question, Casey. You can find me on YouTube at Riley Thorpe, where you can check out all of my short films. And you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Riley James Thorpe, where you can check out all my content there. I also post updates to the show on there as well.
You can all find me on Twitter at JarmesCasey, JarmesCasey. You can find all of my work, like a bunch of stuff that I've written, at caseyjarms.wordpress.com. As always, I'm Casey Jarms.
And I'm Riley Thorpe.
And hey, it's just a movie. Don't lose your head about it, especially not to a ladder.